The dollar has ruled the global economy for nearly 8 decades. Every oil barrel, international loan, and major trade deal, almost all of them depend on the greenback. The US dollar isn't just money, it's power, it's influence, it's a global weapon. But now, that dominance is being challenged by a rising alliance, BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, along with new members like Iran, Egypt, the UAE, and Ethiopia, are building an alternative world order. And at the center of that strategy is a direct assault on the dollar's supremacy. This isn't just a financial rivalry. It's a new kind of Cold War, a monetary war, where economic systems are splitting. Alliances are hardening, and the battle for control is shifting away from borders to banks. At the 2025 BRICS Summit in Rio, a clear message was delivered. The world is too dependent on the dollar, and the time has come to build something new. Why now? Because Washington may have overplayed its hand. Over the last decade, the US has weaponized its financial system using sanctions, asset freezes, and trade restrictions as tools of foreign policy. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, the West cut it off from the SWIFT system and froze hundreds of billions in Russian reserves. That move shocked other powers, especially China, India, and oil-rich nations in the Middle East. If the US could isolate a G20 economy overnight, who's next? From that moment on, BRICS accelerated its push to escape the dollar's shadow. But let's rewind for a moment. How did the dollar even become the world's currency? It all began in 1944 with the Bretton Woods Agreement. As World War II neared its end, the global powers chose the US dollar backed by gold as the anchor for the global economy. The dollar became the benchmark, and most currencies were pegged to it. Then came the Nixon shock in 1971, detaching the dollar from gold. But instead of collapsing, the dollar found new life through something called the petrodollar system. In the 1970s, the US struck a deal with Saudi Arabia. Oil would only be sold in dollars. In return, the US would provide military protection and invest in Saudi development. Other oil-exporting nations followed. This guaranteed a global demand for dollars and locked in its dominance. Fast forward to today, and that system is under pressure like never before. In the past year alone, Saudi Arabia has sold oil to China in yuan. India paid Russia for crude using rupees. Brazil and Argentina launched direct payment agreements. Even the UAE and Egypt, longtime US allies, are openly trading outside the dollar. So what's BRICS actually building to replace the dollar? Right now, there are 3 main strategies at play. First, alternative payment systems. China's CIPS and Russia's SPFs are growing as alternatives to SWIFT. These allow cross-border transactions without relying on Western banks. Some BRICS nations are now linking these systems together. Second, local currency trade. Instead of converting to dollars, countries are settling deals in their own currencies. This lowers transaction costs, reduces exposure to dollar volatility, and cuts dependence on US financial infrastructure. Third, a new shared currency. There's serious discussion within BRICS about creating a digital or gold-backed currency, something that could be used for international trade between member states. It wouldn't replace local currencies, but it would provide a neutral medium of exchange outside the dollar system. But here's the big question. Can BRICS really succeed? The dollar is more than just widely used. It's deeply embedded. Over 80% of global foreign exchange transactions involve the dollar. More than half of all global trade is invoiced in dollars. Central banks across the world hold about 60% of their reserves in dollars. The greenback isn't just dominant, it's entangled in the very fabric of global finance. Replacing it would take years, maybe decades. Still, there are signs of momentum. In 2001, BRICS nations held just under 7% of global GDP. Today, they account for over 31%. More than the G7, they control massive reserves of natural resources, from oil and gas to rare earth metals. Their populations dwarf the West, and politically, they're increasingly unified in their opposition to Western-led institutions. What we're seeing is the beginning of a bifurcated world economy. One where trade blocs form around trust, not treaties. Where sanctions push countries out of the dollar system and into new alliances. And where the next crisis, economic, military, or political, could finally tip the scale. So what happens if the dollar truly starts to decline? The US would lose its ability to run massive deficits without consequences. Interest rates could rise sharply. Foreign investment in US bonds could fall. Inflation could spike. And, most importantly, America's geopolitical leverage would shrink. No more freezing of foreign assets. No more sanctions that cripple economies. No more dollar-based pressure. And that terrifies Washington. That's why we're seeing countermeasures. The US is trying to strengthen trade ties with Europe and Japan. It's pressuring developing countries not to join BRICS-led initiatives. It's even floating its own digital dollar, a way to modernize and preserve dominance in the digital age. But is that enough? BRICS isn't just about currency. It's about control. Control over trade routes, over energy markets, over financial independence, over sovereignty itself. The dollar gave the US a near monopoly on global power. BRICS wants to break that monopoly, not through war, but through economic secession. And this new financial Cold War, it's only just beginning. In the next few years, we'll see more bilateral trade deals in local currencies, more experiments with digital assets, more fragmentation of global capital flows, and, possibly, a showdown between rival financial systems. This is the front line of the New World Order, a place where empires aren't measured by armies, but by balance sheets. The dollar won't fall overnight, but its invincibility, it's already been shattered. Thanks for watching Geo Frontline. Subscribe for more deep dive briefings into the forces shaping global power, and let us know, is BRICS building a better future or just shifting control from west to east? Either way, the world's financial map is being redrawn, and we're all going to feel the impact.